So folks, hi, welcome, Flying Doctor here, hope you're doing alright. It's been a long while, been very busy on the simulator, but a long while since I've done a video. Thought I'd just show you this, anyone who's interested. We are live to the public right now. Have to confess, most of my recordings tend to be private and I think better afterwards. Anyway, new aircraft, the Kodiak 100, as you can see here. This has been much celebrated on Microsoft Flight Simulator, both in terms of the interior and exterior modelling, but also in terms of the instrumentation and compatibility. So yeah, comes in a variety of liveries, huge number in fact, and so yeah, I've been taking this for a spin. I've previously on the sim flown sort of Cessna, Beechcraft, Bonanza, kind of some other light aircraft, but this was an opportunity to step it up a little bit. So what I've been doing is practicing approaches. I don't know how familiar you are, but if I just switch across, you can see, for example, this is using Navimap here. And Navimap is a free piece of software and links into the sim and gives you an overview of the areas that you want to fly in. Also connects with the simulator, so in time you can see where the aircraft is. You won't see that right now because we're not actually in the air at the moment, but as you can see, I mean, put crudely, you've got the red bits, whether they're rectangular, circular, blue, whatever, are different airspaces. The green little flags you can see here, they're really important because we're going to pay attention to those. These are ILS approaches, instrument landing systems, that are a radio system that effectively provide a cone of descent. So what I'm practicing at the moment is how to navigate these, which takes you in the ideal descent path to different airports across the world. Not every airport has ILS or an automatic GPS descent if you want to use that option, but yeah, it's one of the things I'm practicing. So the first things I'm doing is, for example, we'll look at Leeds Bradford here, which we've been before. You can see there it is. There's plenty of information here, but what I'm really interested in is the aircraft name. I'm going to switch across to another tool called Navigraph, which has for various reasons not quite worked, but it will do. Just bear with me. So yeah, going to switch across to Navigraph. There we go. So Navigraph is kind of it's a paid-for service that's used for simulation training purposes, and these are more detailed navigational maps. And if I type in the corner here EGNN, you'll see that it's indicated that that's Leeds Bradford Airport, and we get a range of options here. The star is the standard arrival kind of routes. ESID are standard departure routes, but the main thing is if we just sort of click on Leeds Bradford, we will find the details of the airport. So there we go. So these are different ways into Leeds Bradford Airport, and these are up-to-date charts, and those are called stars. You can also have different approaches to the runways, or ILS approaches to the runways. They're not different approaches to the runways, they link into the star approaches themselves. So for example, if I'm looking here and I'm looking down at Navimap and I'm thinking to myself, I would be aware of the wind, and I don't quite know what it's doing. We'll jump across and we'll see in the main sim as we come out. That's probably the best place to go. So if I go into the main sim and then select the airport, which is EGNM, Leeds Bradford, just gives me an idea of what's happening first. Just zoom in and you can see I've got the wind there. That'll be the accurate winds, 270 degrees at 2 knots. So generally be taking off against the wind. So that would put me on runway effectively going up this way in the most kind of not exactly the most detailed way, but there's our Navimap approach. So 270 coming in. There's, well, there we go to 90. Don't know if you can see my cursor here, probably not, but effectively I'm working around clockwise would be 90, 180, 270. So it's 270 coming in on that track, which means if we're going to hit the wind, we need to be on this runway here. We need to be on our runway 32, which stands for 320. Okay, so I realise some people out there, and that's sort of new to them. So yeah, runway 320 there. So then I jump back up into my Navigraph here, and I'm actually going to look straight for the approaches, and I'm looking for a runway 32, and you'll see I've got three options here just above me. I've got a navigational direction beacon, ILS instrument landing system, and that's runway 32. There's also category or 2 or 3 direction beacon, ILS runway 32. So we're going to stick with the category 1, and a little graph comes up, and this is where things start to get kind of busy really. So what this is telling me is if I want to land runway 32, then the bearing's actually 318 degrees, and if what you need to imagine is it's like a cone, and once you're in that cone, the instrumentation in the aircraft is able to automatically align with this descent path. There's two things that are important here. The first thing is the altitude that I hit the outer marker, which is this Maltese cross here. So it's saying come in at 3,000, and that is 7.2 miles from the runway beginning. And also you can see another cross there at 2,300 at 5 miles out. Okay, category A and B and C and D relate to the permissions around different aircraft that are able to land. I believe, I might be wrong about that, but that's for another time. So Leeds Bradford, runway 32. We're actually going to arrive at Leeds Bradford back because I'm practicing the approaches. So yeah, no surprise there. EGNM as I just move. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to request here that we're going to arrive via instrument flight rules. Low altitude airways on the left here opens up the options. Arrival can be direct, but the approach is clear, so we're looking for ILS 32, and you can see it's given this rather strange looking flight path, but it all makes sense. So we take off from runway 32. There we are. Turn, come back on ourselves over where we originally took off from, moving down here, and we kind of do a little triangle, come back on approach over Leeds, and that's where we shall fix all of this instrumentation so that we're able to land. One hopes automatically. We'll see. Flight conditions today, we'll make it live. That's the live weather, and sometimes I don't always get you can save the flight path in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I don't always get it working in Navimap either, so you can save it and put it into other programs. So I can put it into Navimap and I can put it into Navigraph, but I'll show you one or two nifty things that are possible later on. So the first thing I'm going to do is save it. If you've not had an opportunity to do that or to load a flight plan before, click on More, click on Load and Save, click on Save here, and it will bring up a dialog for me. There you go, I'll just show it for you there. It's saving as a .flt plan. I'll just put that wherever I want it. I'm going to stick it on my desktop. You can see another one there. I'm going to put Leeds on there. Just needs to be something that I can recognize, and that's loaded on. Now, what's significant about that is that sometimes, as I say, the flight plans don't translate well when you move from one piece of software to another. But if I shoot across to Navigraph, and now I click on flights, now I click on new flight, now I click on from file, now I go to my desktop, which is where I know that the file was produced, if it will let me. Is it going to take its time, or is it going to crash for me? No, there you go, just took its time. You can just see it down the bottom there. It says Leeds PLN. Open that up, and effectively you can see it's really nifty, isn't it? Got to admit, that is nifty. You can see, I'll just get rid of that, the flight plan that we're looking at. So it's not picked up that I'm going to be traveling as per the map that I'm overlaid. If you remember, underneath this, well, I'll move it for you. Underneath this is that triangular route that you can see there. It's not remembered that, but it is actually giving me the runway that I'm going to be coming in on. Okay, and we can do something similar if we move across to Navimap as well. So there's our Navimap. Okay, it's already got some interesting features. You're able to streamline it with Microsoft Flight Simulator, and so it has the simulator data in it. It's updated with the latest navigational charts, but if I go to flight plan here, I go to open flight plan, much the same across to where I put it, which is the desktop. Click open on the leads, and there you go. So yes, it's not picked up the it's not picked up on the fixes for the turns, but it has spotted that you're doing an ILS approach, and you have got the turnaround, or the initial track at least, which is helpful, because what comes across here you can see very clearly is this 3,000 foot CI32, which is where we intersect, and FI32, which is where we need to be at 3,000 feet. So it's saying you stay at 3,000 feet there, and at this point it will have picked up the glide slope. Hopefully it will have done that automatically, and it will lead the aircraft down. So I'm going to go back to the chart, and I'm going to go back to runway 32. Now this is particularly nifty. One thing you can do here, again, if you've not seen it and you're using Navigraph, is you can overlay the ILS approach onto a chart. So there we go, there's our overlay. Really nifty, and I can change the extent as well to which I've got transparency. So there we are, there's half transparency. So yes, you can see exactly what's happening, and there we go. So this is the recommended track for if we're coming across. That's exactly what's happened in Microsoft Flight Simulator, more or less, apart from it's curvy. So there we go. So there's some interesting and significant information here. If I move on to Navigraph itself, okay, so that's ATIS, which should appear, that's the weather service. So all of these details here are, so ATIS is the weather service, Leeds approach is the Leeds tower, sorry, the approach, navigational approach as they guide you in, the tower as you get closer to the airport. This is the key figure here, the localizer, the ILF 110.9. That basically has to be popped into the Garmin system, and that is producing that cone of descent I talked about earlier. And so there's instructions on what to do if there's a missed approach. Climb straight ahead to 2,000 feet and turn right, ascending still to 3,000. There is our approach in itself, and down the bottom here we've got straight in landing runway 32 ILS, and there we go. For ILS A, B and C, we need to make a final decision at 200 feet, so that should be fairly accurate, and it's 210 feet for Cat D. As I say, I need to sharpen up on what the ILS categories are. I think they refer to the accuracy of the ILS descent, and I think they also relate to the aircraft that can use the approach. As ever, it's a case of constantly learning. So there we go. So that's what we're going to attempt to do. Is we're going to attempt to take off from here. We'll take off along runway 32, turn round on ourselves and follow this Cat C and D track and round here. Okay, right, simple but complicated but interesting at the same time. So back into the main sim. As I say, we've set the flight conditions for today as to match them exactly. I'm not sure what the weather is like. Clear skies apparently. There we are. So that's right, we'll click on fly and then we're going to be in the sim shortly. I do like this area because of its mix. I mean, it's an international airport in its own right, but right on the bottom of the Yorkshire Moors, the Yorkshire Dales. There we go. So yeah, we should see just some of the areas we're going to fly around. So we're going to come here, and I think it's that kind of angle, that track we're coming down. So we'll come across Hawthford, Bramley, Farnley, Morley, down towards Outhid and Turn. Depends exactly when, what waypoint we're catching up with, whether it's CI32 or FI32. We'll see when we get in the sim from what's being planned, and then we're directly more or less over Leeds as we descend. So Leeds, there you go, right above the University of Leeds, above Moor Park, Headingley, West Park, Tinsill, and then through. Typically on the approaches you're not really looking to gain a really detailed view of the scenery. You're obviously paying attention to what's going on, trying to make the ensure that all the digital pokery stuff is working as it should, or if it doesn't, working out how you can move out of the automated process and land manually. The reason why it's taken a while to load is simply that this is an additional add-on airport produced by Orbix. There's quite a few add-ons actually. I have the European Airport add-on, which gives us much more realistic ground vehicles for the airports, and also there's an additional add-on that improves the standard airport textures. The Garmin NIX, which is what you can see here, is an improvement of the Garmin mod. So these units here are Garmin navigational or primary flight display mods. You can see what's going on. We've got this unit here, and that is the primary flight display for the pilot. There's a duplicate over here for the co-pilot, and this central module here is for navigation, although there's a lot of crossover between them all. You can have a navigation screen showing here. So what I'm going to do is just check, as we're just moving, I'm just going to check what we have loaded in terms of the flight plan. Might as well click here. So not very much. This will be, I'll be flying manually to catch the glide slope. This inner figure here is what is really significant, because this is the figure that sets out the navigation, the signal that we're locking onto for our ILS. And I can already see, as I look at this, I can already see a slight problem, because if I look up to my navigaph here, I can see that the ILS DME is 110.9, and that is not 110.9. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a change to this, and you'll see that the change comes in on the left hand side if you're new here, and you shift it across to make it active. 110.9, move it across to there. Now that's not going to do anything for us. We won't see that because, as you can see, we're actually on GPS navigation. This is giving us a bearing. This will always give us a bearing here. But what's overlaid upon it is, if we were flying GPS, this would be the GPS track that we have. I'm still not giving GPS up, because what I can see is that I've got an arrow either way. GPS term is saying that's a terminal point on the GPS track, so it's saying that we're sat where we're going to arrive. This is still a little bit new for me. I'm going to go back here. It's saying suspended here, and we'll click that off. There we go. So as I would expect things to be operating, it looked like I flew I fly northwards and then turn round. We'll have a look and just see what's happening. But the most important thing I'm concerned about for the moment is this 110.90. Now what that does is that sets the frequency for the beacon we follow, in order that it will give us hopefully a longitudinal track and a virtual track as well. And the way in which I can see that is I switch over to say, okay, I want to now look at what is signal 110.90. Now if I've got this right, there we go, what you find is that you've got this localizer, so it's lock 1. So what this is saying is I am on the line of the runway, which is good news. That's the second option if you were using a second localizer, but that's saying I'm on the line for the runway in the event that I was landing. So this is the position that things should end up further down the runway. It's saying suspended here still. We'll see. I'm not quite sure what that means. But the main thing is that you'll see this central line here, but we're lined up with it. If we were off course, say if we were east of the runway, the airplane would appear here, and we would have to track left across to it. And if we're on autopilot, we would be manually tracking left, or the autopilot would hope it would manually track left. So it's obviously set us a minimum of 2,000 feet and 6.3 miles. This is up here. I'm just going to check this as well, because I will need to set these minimums. So I'm just checking here. Just bear with me. I've just managed to introduce that entire section without referring to the Garmin here that I'll show, but the thing that I'm just looking for here are my minimums. So 2,300 feet here is where I might want to put that. I can also pick it up at 3,000 feet, this descent path. So sorry, I'm going to go back now into the main sim. Here you are, into the main sim, and I'm going to set 3,000 feet as our altimeter setting, our altimeter setting in the Garmin, and that means that if we reach a point where I'm holding the altitude or asking the aircraft to do that, I'll be at the right altitude to intersect the glide path. So there we are. And when it comes to switching across to autopilot, if I choose to use that, I'll be able to do so. There we go. Okay, I've signalled, if you can see here on the right, I've signalled that I'm wanting a flight level change. and I'm moving this up to the maximum climb speed of 101 knots. Okay, that's the first time I've done that. Usually I wouldn't do it that way, but we'll see. I'm not going to put it in autopilot at the moment. I'm just going to take off myself, and then we'll just see where we are. Apart from this does look promising here, as I just look at the range. So yeah, okay, we'll see. I'm not utterly convinced, but we'll see what's happening. Off we go. It's always good to make sure your joystick is switched on. Okay, sorry.
Decimal 58 for Charlie 51.
That's the co-pilot's job at the moment.
Charlie 51 is
Responding back for us.
100 feet descending 1,000 feet.
Alpha Tango Charlie 51 leads approach altimeter 29.902 continuous plan. Charlie 51, you are 2 miles northwest. Climb and maintain 4,000 feet. Expect ILS runway tree 2 approach via Lima Bravo Alpha transition.
Okay, so this is not what I'm expecting. I'll just show you on the nav map what's going on.
Climb and maintain 4,000.
So you can see here, if I zoom in, we've got the aircraft coming, and my understanding is that we should be coming around,
Alpha Charlie 5.
back on ourselves and down this way. So I'm going to manually do that now. Another nifty trick whilst we're at it. Things are quite stable at the moment. We're looking over to Watley, by the way, at the moment. Another interesting thing, if you're using the Navi map, you can see it here, is that you can click to find out where the aircraft is in relation to the map. So there we are. But this has not gone the way I thought it would go, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do now is just jump into the sim. I've got an idea of where I am from the Navi map down here, and using the two, I'm going to double back on myself, which was part of the original flight plan when I put it into Flight Simulator. Okay. Now I can do this. I'm actually going to do this by using the heading. I'm just obviously looking to make a... We'll do the left turn, actually. It's going to be a lot easier. No, we'll do... Sorry, what we'll do, we'll do right turn. Silly me. Crazy me. Right, we're just going to head east. Now, I've just moved that. You see this little heading bug here on the screen. I'm going to... If I click on heading, it will automatically follow that. I'm also keeping an eye on the altitude here, and I'm not ascending as... We've got plenty of time to ascend to 3,000 feet. It's not exactly looking as fast as I'd like it. That's alright though, actually, in fairness. So that's an easterly track, and we're going to go south as well. I'll just change the heading bug once more. Or just make it probably south by southeast. And north is, this is following the direction of the aircraft, so it's relative to where the aircraft is pointing here. But if we go to nav map, there we go, we can see where the aircraft is, which is way up here. But I'll miss it in a moment. We're coming down to Otley, so I'm going to fly over Yeadon, over Pudsey, more or less in this trajectory here. So we've got Otley down to our, there's Poole in Wharfdale that you can see there. The Western Estate just before us, just there. Burley and Wharfdale, sorry, is over to our right. There's Menston. It's not easy to see that. I'll just script across for you. There we are, see if we can see that there. So that's, in fact, if we're looking behind us, that's just Burley and Wharfdale. There's Burley Woodhead there. There's the moors. There's Burley and Wharfdale. That just behind us, therefore. We're looking directly now. This is Menston here. And you can see the moors up there. You can see all familiar training ground for me once upon a time. This is now just coming across to Guiseley. Doing about 100 knots, as you can see. Yeadon is more or less in front of us. And there you are, I can see the airport below us now. So basically we're going to head into this area, turn left and come back in. A little green flashing light, alt saying I've reached 3,000 feet. So if I click on the CDI button here, you'll see that it's giving me, this is the effectively the runway relative to us.
1,000 feet, keep speed not above 185 knots.
Climb and maintain 3,000 feet, keep speed not above 185 knots, Charlie 51.
I'm going to make a slightly more southerly adjusting to the heading. No, sorry, the other way. You can see the location beacon has now switched. As you fly over Beacon, it assumes that you're wanting to connect in the direction that you're travelling, so it's taken a while for it just to work out we're going in the opposite direction now. But it's also to do with where the beacon's located in relation to the runway. It's just behind us is the runway and down. So there's our Navigraph map here. And you can see here's our little marker of where we are, and you can see what I'm just trying to do, just trying to loop in here. And you can see that F132 is this marker right here, 7.2 miles out, F132. And you can see F132 is asking us to hit it at 2,000, at 3,000 feet. It's a bit deceptive that, yeah, so 3,000 feet, there's F132 down here. And And if we were joining later, we will be at 5 mile out, looking at 2,300 feet. And there it is in relation to the nav map. You can see why I've adjusted the track. Oh, sorry. But there you go. So we're going to cut across here. So actually, to aim for this little waypoint here. F132. I'm pretty sure I can get direct to that if I want, but I can see what's happening on the map anyway. So we've got New Wortley directly to our left here. Just flying over, just approaching Morley now. The view as promised. Sorry, I'm terribly bad at I'm saying, oh, this is the view, and I'm on a different screen, still getting used to this. Batley, there you go, there's Batley, just near 3 mile away. And so I've reached the point now where I do with going to F132. I'm going to see if I can find a way of doing that doing that automatically. There we go. F. Let's try this. 1. See it's happening on the screen below. F13. Let's see where you're at, simulator. So F132. Or it could be FI32. Where is it? I don't know, let's try this. No. Well, this is telling me that FI32 doesn't exist. I'm just going to manually change the heading just so I'm going to move across. If you watch the heading bug, I'm just moving it across. In the meantime, I know I'm at 3,000 feet, but I'm just moving it across because it will allow me to track finally onto the localizer that's here. And then we'll have another go here. I'll take that as a 1. let's just try that and see what happens. F132 does not exist. It's FI32. Let's try C132. I'm keeping an eye on exactly where we are. We need to make a turn if this doesn't work automatically. No, it doesn't exist. Right, so I'm just going to make a, you should show you where we are on the nav map, which is down here. Just going to make a left-hand turn to line up with the runway. You can see how quickly, there we go.
Charlie 5-1, you are 12 miles southeast of Leeds. Contact Leeds Tower on 120.30 inbound.
Tower on 120.30 Charlie 51. Leeds Tower Alpha Tango.
Now I'm actually going,
2 miles.
I'll go for 300 degrees
Runway tree 2 approach.
because I'm interested in the intercept. 107 knots is actually quite
Altimeter 29.9
conservative, really.
equals X Microsoft UPSPHE.
But we'll just clear that.
Wind/phoneme 2
Clear that.
tree. Cleared ILS runway tree 2 approach.
Leeds
Okay.
Tower Alpha Tango Charlie 51 inbound ILS runway tree 2 approach.
So now I'm going to come off the heading tab
Altimeter 29.9 phoneme alphabet
onto the approach. So headings off.
equals WIHND wind/phoneme 270 entry. Cleared ILS runway tree 2 approach.
Cleared ILS runway tree 2 approach Charlie 51.
So also I'm going to take the altitude fix off, and that will allow it hopefully to find the glide slope. Sorry, so moving off, just to what I was saying here was, and we'll get an idea as to whether we're moving. We can tell it's found the glide slope because you can see from this little diamond here, that's saying that it's found the beacon. The approach button, which I'll press, and it's on now. So there we're on the approach, and it's found the glide slope. If you can see the little GS there, so we can see now that what we've got happening is we've got a runway here, we have glide slope in green, we have a little green marker here next to the yellow, which is telling us that we are on the glide slope. Track is the same as our track. We're below the line, which is indicating that we're descending here. We can see the speed going up, which is also makes sense, so I'm going to reduce the speed down. But what we don't have on is we don't have the altitude hold mode on. That needs to be off, and our nav needs to be off as well. If you just look now onto the nav map, you can see we're right bang on track here coming down, and on Navigraph again you can see where we are, 5 mile out.
Alphabet equals X Microsoft UPSPH equals WIHND wind/phoneme 270 entry. Cleared to land runway tree 2.
Cleared to land runway tree 2 Charlie 51.
So as we're coming in here, just coming Kirkstall just to our left and forward, Horsford further in front of us, more or less directly in front of us, to the right far Headingley. And what should happen is that with this being on automatic pilot and following the glide slope, it should take us down, but it depends on the accuracy of the ILS. Usually the ILS is obviously very accurate, but for some reason it doesn't always work with every Microsoft aircraft as much as it could, as well as it could. You might be able to see just ahead we've got 2 reds and 2 white PAPI lights, which is indicating, again, visual indicator if we were flying VFR, that we are on track. Now I'm just going to spice things up a little bit here, because hey, one of the things about ILS is it lets us land in really bad weather. So let's have some rain. So this is really different, isn't it? So we're at 1,000 feet now. Now ordinarily we would need to be confident that we're seeing the runway at around about 862 feet. So if we can't see the runway at 800 feet, ordinarily we would pull away. And my guess is we're going to struggle with that. But nonetheless, we'll just see, for a laugh, where the localizer brings us. There we are, we can see the runway, and you can see we're on a glide slope there, and we're at 900 feet. And the sim really struggling here just to show this. So I may well this is taking us down really nicely, bearing in mind we're in stormy conditions. Okay, just taking my time. Lift the nose, there we are. Oh, those are not nice conditions.
Charlie 5-1, turn next taxiway. Charlie 5-1, contact ground on 120.305.
120.305 for Charlie 5-1.
That's got Tundra tyres on it. That's one of the reasons why it's making such noise. There we are. I'd say that is a bit atrocious. Usually the sim is much better. I suspect it's because we're streaming at the same time, and also there we go, that might improve things. So I did something on another screen. The thing is that this thing doesn't require much speed to take off, and it seems to be a bit difficult on the ground. we'll go in there. So there you are, folks. Very, I must admit, disappointed at the end here. I'm not quite sure. Something's gone wrong in the graphics side. This is not the sim. Stop! This is not in the sim itself. This is to do, well, it's to do with, I think it's one of the windows just rescaled. Shouldn't have this white band at the top. But yeah, folks, just hope you enjoyed that. I don't know how much sense it made, but